Until recently, Bret Weinstein was a biology professor at Evergreen State College in Oregon. Last year, though, a campus mob targeted him when he refused to leave campus because of the color of his skin. He took a principal position as a liberal, by the way. Weinstein later felt he had to resign. He did. This week, he testified to Congress about free speech on campus. And after he did that, he spoke with us. Here it is. Professor, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tucker. Thanks for inviting me back on.
So, well, amazingly, it's been a year since all of this happened, and we talked to you right in the middle of it. You've had a lot of time to reflect on it. What are the lessons that you're taking from the experience that you went through?
Wow, it is hard to imagine that it's been a year, but it has been almost exactly a year, and much has changed. I think one of the things that's most important is that the conversation is in a very different place than it was last May. We are now able to discuss issues of identity politics, and though people are still inflamed on both sides of that dialogue, we are able to have those discussions in a way that was virtually impossible last May. It seems to me that there is actually a recognition that the country is in danger, and it's being placed in danger by identity politics, both on the far right and the far left. And so I see a movement led in part by the intellectual dark web and the Heterodox Academy and FIRE towards what I would call the patriotic center, where people who disagree over many issues of policy find themselves aligned over basic American principles.
Yes. So as I recall, you were kind of caught unaware by this. You were absorbed in your academic discipline. You were kind of a traditional free speech liberal. You didn't fully appreciate what had been happening on campus until you stood up and took the traditionally liberal position that you shouldn't attack people on the basis of their skin color. And you got hounded off campus and threatened with violence. How have you reconciled to Evergreen itself? Have you spoken to the president of the college? Have they apologized to you? Where does that all stand now?
Wow, they have done quite the opposite of apologizing. They have, in fact, hired a PR team that periodically demonizes my wife and myself in the Olympian, the local paper, the paper of the state capitol. And things on campus have actually grown, as much as it's hard to imagine, much worse than they were during the riots of May 2017. So the Evergreen State College has taken a turn towards the authoritarian that is nothing if not breathtaking. People are being fired for their willingness to offer any sort of challenge to the administration. Those who support the administration in its reckless quest for what is falsely called equity are being promoted, and the college faces a terrible financial crisis as a result of the fact that students are not showing up. Having seen what the campus is descending into, people have decided to go elsewhere for college, which has put the college $6 million in the red.
That's all so sad and crazy. So unless I'm missing something, all you did was say, I'm not going to leave because I'm the wrong skin color. I mean, you took a kind of traditional civil rights position, I think, on what was going on at Evergreen. On what grounds are they attacking you? What are they saying about you?
Well, ironically, the challenge, the one that appears to resonate with people on the far left, is that my talking to you during the riots brought violence from the alt-right to campus, which is a stretch to say the least. It's not that there weren't threats to the campus. There were. There was one threat in particular phoned in from a man in New Jersey who claimed to have a gun and be heading for campus. He did not have a gun, and at any rate was in New Jersey. But the argument effectively is that standing up and speaking about what was taking place was breaking ranks in a way that damaged the college. But what is never said is that you invited me to talk to you and your audience at a time when the rest of the press was looking the other way. And what is hard for people to appreciate is that at the time that I was on your program, the president of the college, George Bridges, had literally stood down the police force so that they were unable to intervene between rioters and members of the community like myself. And the rioters took up carrying baseball bats and batons. They challenged people who disagreed with them physically. And so it was quite a dangerous situation. And the idea that at a moment when, as I understand it from the chief of police, I was apparently being hunted for car to car by protesters. I don't know what they had in mind, but at a time when that was taking place in my own neighborhood, going on a program with an audience understood to be right of center was like some kind of sin.
It's unbelievable. I thought then, and I think now, I doubt we've ever voted for the same candidate, but I really admired your bravery, and I admire it now. Thank you, Professor, and Godspeed. We support you.
Thank you.
Nowhere does political thinking shape our culture more than in our universities. So tonight, we've got two college students here to discuss the way they see the political debates shaping our country. Cassie Dillon, founder of Lone Conservative, a website for conservative students to discuss current issues, and Kira O'Brien, president of the Harvard Republican Club. Let's start with Cassie. You had an interesting experience at your recent graduation, didn't you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so at graduation, I was actually booed by my classmates as I was receiving my diploma. And I think a lot of it started as, one, I have a reputation on campus for being conservative, especially because I founded Lone Conservative. And then also because I decided to decorate my cap with various political stickers and buttons. And one of them happened to be a Trump-Pence sticker, and my peers were not too happy about that.
Amazing. You were booed for having a political view that wasn't in conformity with the prevailing culture. Kira, have you had anything like that? What's been your experience?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had several experiences that are pretty similar to that. My classmates are largely pretty accepting of diverse political views, but the teaching assistants have been the biggest stumbling block in my education. In my American Foreign Policy class last semester, I had a teaching assistant who asked for our opinions on whether the country would be better or worse off if Hillary Clinton was president regarding the North Korea debates. We went around the room, and it became pretty evident very quickly that he was not actually asking for our opinion. I was the last one to speak and the only one to say that I did not believe our country would be better off. And unfortunately, this teaching fellow came back and said, well, have you considered this and that, and offered several other scenarios. And I told him, yes, I had considered that. And then he reprimanded me and told me I was incorrect and I should reconsider my views.
It's amazing, isn't it? And you're at Harvard, right? You're supposed to be like like one of the greatest universities in the world, and just being told that you're not allowed to have an opinion. Can I just ask you, Kira, in terms of what you're doing there with the Republican Club? I mean, what are you doing to try and change this?
Well, we host a variety of free speech events, and we also just have a forum for discussion of policy. The conservative community at Harvard and the Harvard Republican Club more broadly are what I would consider to be my first home on campus. It's actually a broader group of individuals than you would expect, and there are issues that we can find consensus on. We have a really great working relationship with the Harvard College Democrats, and we've been working together on Students for Carbon Dividends, which is an initiative that I'm the vice president of as well.
So, Cassie, I've read a really great piece you wrote as well for the Wall Street Journal, I think it was, about your experience. Was it was it a Women's March event or something like that? It was really shocking. Another example of the incredible intolerance of the left. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so unlike Kira, I've actually had a really good experience with my professors. It's the students that give me a hard time. So I decided to go to an event that was hosted on my campus and advertised for months. It was the founders of the Women's March came to speak on campus, so Linda Sarsour, Tamika Mallory, and they came to speak on campus, and I wanted to go and ask questions because that's what conservatives do. We ask questions. We don't shout down speakers. We don't protest. We like to ask questions. And so I went to go into the event, and there were not a lot of students there. I was very surprised. And I wanted to ask a question, but we were told that we were not allowed to ask questions, but we needed to write them down on a note card to be pre-approved by a dean before these women could answer the questions. And these women have been in a lot of controversy lately, and I thought it was really important for them, if they're coming to a campus, what they call the discussion, to actually discuss with students, and that's not what happened.
What did happen?
So what happened was they answered very softball questions for many students. One of them called me out during the speech because I was tweeting about it, and she was upset that I said not a lot of students were there. It was a room made for 1,000 students, and I'd say maybe 75 to 100 students were there. And so she was very upset about that, but they didn't answer any questions. They sat there and they used the platform to share their ideas without having any other ideas or letting other people challenge them. These are community activists. They should be used used to interacting with people in the community, but they just use it as a platform to share their ideas without interacting.
Well, I just think that, you know, your stories are just so typical of what's going on, and whether it's, as in Kira's case, it's the teachers, or Cassie, or in your case, the students. It just speaks to this incredible intolerance that we're seeing. And I think the most important thing that gives me optimism, and I think should for our audience, is the fact that you're both there, and you know, and it's terrible to say that what you're doing is brave. It shouldn't need to be brave, but it really is. What you're doing is really brave. You're standing up for what you think, and that is so important for the future of our democracy. You know, the left go on all the time about, you know, undermining democracy and so on. It's actually their intolerance that's doing that, but you're resisting that. And I'm really, really grateful to both of you for doing that and for joining us tonight. Thank you so much.